On an international trip, my son gave his mother-in-law an unlimited credit card, and me just $100, having no idea about my $8 million inheritance. That moment changed everything. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if, for just a second, you feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening my soul. It was a gray November Tuesday in Chicago. The dry autumn leaves crunched under my worn-out shoes as I walked through O'Hare Airport. My son, Daniel, 42, had insisted we join him on this family trip to Paris. I was wearing my usual black coat, the one I'd bought on sale at Macy's 5 years ago, back when I still believed I deserved something nice once in a while. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my frayed purse. Not from the cold, but from that strange feeling I'd had in my chest for weeks, as if something was about to shatter for good. In the waiting area, Daniel was obsessively checking the passports with a meticulousness he'd inherited from his father. His wife, Kate, was laughing with her mother, Eleanor, a woman of 60 who had always looked at me as if I were a scuff mark on her polished marble floor. They carried designer bags, wore shoes that cost more than my monthly Social Security check, and radiated the confidence that only comes from money that never runs out. The smell of airport coffee mingled with the expensive perfumes of women dragging shiny suitcases under the fluorescent lights. I sat in silence, watching Kate show her mother pictures of the hotels where we'd be staying. "Look, Mom, this is the spa where you can relax. And here's the Champs-Élysées, where we're going to do some serious shopping. No limits. No limits." Those words stabbed my chest like pins. It was then that Daniel walked over to me, his steps quick and nervous. His navy blue tie was perfectly knotted as always. But his eyes didn't meet mine. Not once. "Here, Mom, for your little things." He handed me a $100 bill, crumpled, as if it had been sitting in his back pocket for days. The way you'd give spare change to a stranger on Michigan Avenue. My heart stopped for a second. Then it started beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. My fingers, the same ones that had changed his dirty diapers at 3 in the morning when he was a baby, took the bill with a gentleness that ached to my very bones. I mumbled a "thank you" that tasted as bitter as burnt coffee, but what came next was like a dagger to the heart. Kate pulled a white envelope with gold lettering from her Louis Vuitton bag and handed it to her mother with a kiss on the forehead that lasted an eternity. "Here you go, my darling mother. A credit card with no limit. Spend whatever you want, buy whatever your heart desires. You deserve it after all your sacrifices." Eleanor took the card with tears in her eyes. They hugged. Kate stroked her mother's graying hair with infinite tenderness. Daniel smiled, proud, as if he were witnessing the most beautiful scene in the world. And I became air, a shadow breathing in silence. I felt the oxygen leave the room, as if someone had ripped my lungs out in front of all these elegant people with their perfect lives and their families who actually loved each other. The $100 bill burned in my hand. $100 for the woman who had sold her wedding rings to pay for Daniel's college tuition. $100 for the one who had stayed up all night when he had a fever as a child, singing to him while placing cool cloths on his forehead. $100 for the one who had worked in a cannery for 15 years, with hands cracked from the cold and a soul split by loneliness, just to give him a better life. Meanwhile, Eleanor, a woman who had never worked a day in her life, who had spent her time criticizing how I raised Daniel from day one, had an unlimited card to buy trinkets in Paris. I sat frozen in that plastic airport chair, watching them plan which stores they would visit, which restaurants they would dine in, which shows they would see. They spoke loudly, excitedly, like children in a toy store. "Oh, Kate, I'm so thrilled. We're going to Galeries Lafayette, right? I want to buy that Chanel jacket I saw in the magazine." "Of course, Mom. And we're also having dinner at the restaurant in the George V Hotel. Daniel already made the reservation." I squeezed the crumpled bill in my fist until my knuckles turned white. A part of me wanted to stand up, walk over to them, and scream everything I had held inside for years. But another part, the larger part, the one that had learned to swallow her tears and smile when everything hurt, just sat there. As always, like the good mother who never complains. On the flight, they put me in a seat at the back, next to the restroom. They were in first class. During the 4-hour journey, no one came to ask if I needed anything. Not a glass of water, not a blanket, nothing. I looked out the small window at the clouds that looked like dirty cotton and thought about all the times I had given something up so Daniel could have the best. The time I didn't buy a winter coat because he wanted brand-name sneakers. The time I went without dinner so he could treat his friends to pizza. All those times I thought I was sowing love. When we landed in Paris, as I waited for my battered suitcase at the baggage claim, I heard Daniel say to Kate, "Tomorrow, let's take your mom for breakfast at Café de Flore. She'll love it." No one invited me for breakfast anywhere. That night, in the small 2-star hotel where they put me up, while they stayed at the Ritz, I sat on the hard bed and pulled the crumpled bill from my pocket. $100. The price of my value as a mother, according to my own son. But what Daniel didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had been keeping a secret for 2 years. A secret that was going to change everything. An $8 million secret. The days in Paris became a silent torture, reminding me why I had learned to live by swallowing my tears. Every morning, I woke up in that tiny room at the Hôtel des Grands Boulevards, where the wallpaper peeled from the damp walls and the smell of mildew mixed with the aroma of the cheap coffee served at breakfast. While I nibbled on a dry pastry with watery coffee, they were having breakfast on the terrace of the George V, with fresh-baked croissants and freshly squeezed orange juice. I know because Kate posted pictures on Instagram every morning, tagging Eleanor as the world's best mother-in-law, living like a queen in Paris. I wasn't in any of the pictures. It was as if I had traveled to France alone, an invisible tourist wandering the cobblestone streets of Montmartre, my existence unnoticed. Daniel had given me a subway map and said, "Mom, you know how to get around on your own, right? We have to stay with Eleanor because she doesn't understand French." I didn't understand French either, but that didn't matter. I walked the Parisian boulevards in my comfortable shoes and my mended coat, watching couples hold hands in front of the Eiffel Tower while I took lonely selfies with a 5-year-old phone whose battery was always dying. At the Louvre, I stood for 2 hours in front of the Mona Lisa, not because I particularly liked it, but because it was the only place I could sit down without being asked to move. In the evenings, when I returned to my hotel exhausted, I could hear the laughter coming from the presidential suite where they were staying. Through the family WhatsApp group, I learned they had gone to dinner at Le Meurice, that Eleanor had bought a $3,000 Hermes bag, that they had drunk champagne on a cruise down the Seine. "What a marvelous day," Kate would write in the group chat. Eleanor is glowing with happiness. She deserves it so much after all these years of taking care of her family. I would read those messages in my room, eating a ham sandwich I'd bought at a convenience store, and wonder when I had stopped being family and become an inconvenience with a passport. It was in those moments of absolute loneliness that my mind began to travel back to those years Daniel seemed to have erased from his memory with the efficiency of someone wiping an old hard drive. I remembered when he was 8 and broke his arm falling off his bike. I rushed him to Cook County Hospital, him crying in my arms as I promised everything would be okay. We were in the emergency room until 4 in the morning. He fell asleep in my lap, and I stayed awake all night, stroking his hair and quietly singing the lullabies my mother had taught me. The next day, I missed work at the factory to take care of him. I didn't have paid sick days, so I lost that week's wages. We ate mac and cheese for 10 days straight, but Daniel had his medicine and his candy to make him feel better. Did he remember that now, as he toasted with Dom Perignon in Paris? I also remembered when he turned 18 and wanted a Yamaha motorcycle just like his friend Mark's. I worked double shifts at the cannery for 6 months. My hands raw from the cold of the freezers, and my back broken from 14-hour days. I sold my gold earrings, the only ones I had, inherited from my grandmother. I gave him the motorcycle on his birthday, wrapped in a giant red bow I'd made myself from leftover curtain fabric. Daniel shouted with excitement, hugged me tight, and said, "You're the best mom in the world. I love you." That night, I stayed up in the kitchen, drinking chamomile tea and looking out the window, feeling like the richest woman on earth, because my son was happy, because his smile was worth more than all the gold in the world. Where was that son who told me he loved me? When he decided to study business at the University of Illinois, I knew we didn't have money for tuition, but I also knew Daniel was smart. that he deserved a chance at a better life than mine. So I took out a second mortgage on my parents' house, that small 2-bedroom bungalow in Bridgeport where I'd grown up amidst the smell of pot roast and the sound of the radio that was always on. For 5 years, I paid that mortgage by working as an office cleaner at night, after my shifts at the factory. I'd get home at 2 in the morning, my knees swollen and my hands smelling of bleach, but I'd stay up until 4, making food for the next day. I wanted Daniel to wake up to breakfast on the table, his clothes ironed and money for the bus. I never told him how tired I was. I never told him that sometimes I'd fall asleep standing on the L train, my head against the glass, dreaming of one day sleeping for 8 straight hours. He graduated with honors. It was the proudest day of my life. At the ceremony, when they called his name to the stage to receive his diploma, I cried my eyes out. My boy, my baby who had been born in my arms 23 years earlier, had become a successful professional, ready to conquer the world. After graduation, we went to an Italian restaurant downtown for dinner. It was the first time in years I'd eaten somewhere with cloth tablecloths and real napkins. Daniel ordered a bottle of red wine, and we made a toast. To you, Mom, he said, raising his glass. Without you, none of this would have been possible. I owe you everything. I raised my glass too, my hands trembling with emotion. To your future, son. To all the wonderful things ahead of you. Why did that memory feel so distant now? Why did it seem like it had happened in another life? To other people? In Paris, as I walked alone through the Latin Quarter with my $100 tucked away in my purse like a treasure, I also remembered Kate. When Daniel introduced me to her 8 years ago, at that coffee shop on Magnificent Mile where they met on Sundays, she was pretty, elegant, one of those women who knows how to walk in heels without ever wobbling. But there was something in her eyes that made me nervous from the start. A calculated coldness, as if she were constantly evaluating everything. My clothes, my accent, the neighborhood I lived in. So nice to meet you, she'd said with a perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel has told me so much about you. A lie. Daniel never talked about me to anyone. I knew it that same day when Kate asked me what my job was and acted surprised that I was a factory worker. Really? I thought you were a teacher or something. Daniel always says you're so smart. Smart, but a factory worker. As if the two were mutually exclusive. While they were dating, I tried to get closer to Kate. I'd invite her over for Sunday dinner, cook her favorite meal, ask about her job at that marketing firm where she made more in a month than I did in 6. But she always found an excuse to leave early, to not stay for coffee, to not help clear the table. I have to go see my parents, she'd invariably say at 4 o'clock. You know how they are, they worry if I don't spend time with them. Her parents, of course, lived in a sprawling Lincoln Park brownstone with a terrace and a doorman. Stephen was a bank executive and Eleanor had been a homemaker her whole life, but the kind who has a cleaning service and goes to Pilates 3 times a week. When they got married, the wedding was at the Drake Hotel. 150 guests, a live band, a 7-course meal. I bought a dress on sale at Macy's that cost more than I could afford, but I wanted to look elegant for my son's most important day. During the ceremony, I sat in the front row, crying with emotion as Daniel married the woman he had chosen to share his life with. Kate was radiant in her designer dress, her lace veil that had belonged to her great-grandmother, her diamond earrings sparkling under the ballroom lights. During the toasts, Daniel stood up, glass in hand. I want to toast the 2 most important women in my life, he said, his voice thick with emotion. To Kate, my wife, my partner, my forever. And to my mother, who taught me everything I know about unconditional love. All the guests applauded. I got up from my chair and gave him a hug that he returned with genuine affection. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. But now, 5 years later, walking alone through the streets of Paris while they dined on lobster at Le Grand Vefour, I realized it was the last real hug we had ever shared. Because then came the grandchildren. Sophia, 4, and Alex, 2. 2 little angels who stole my heart from day one, but who also became the perfect excuse for Kate to keep me at a proper distance. Oh, Helen, you don't need to come over so often, she would say when I showed up at their house with gifts for the children. Their other grandparents need their space with the little ones too. Their other grandparents. as if I were a second-class grandmother. But when they needed someone to watch the kids because they wanted a romantic weekend getaway to Napa Valley, then they called Grandma Helen. Could you stay with Sophia and Alex from Friday to Sunday? We just don't trust anyone else, Daniel would say over the phone, using that tone he reserved for when he needed something. And I, as always, said yes. I'd arrive on Friday afternoons with my knitting bag full of storybooks and homemade cookies. The kids would run to me shouting, "Grandma Helen," with that pure joy only children have. But Kate always found a way to remind me of my place. "Sophia, honey, don't scream so loud. You'll bother Grandma Helen," she'd say while packing her Louis Vuitton bags for the weekend. "And remember the rules. No sweets after 6, bath time at 7, and in bed by 8 sharp. Is that clear?" As if I didn't know how to care for children. As if I hadn't raised her husband for 23 years. Then she'd turn to me with that condescending smile she'd perfected over the years. "Helen, you know where everything is. If anything happens, it's better to call my parents before bothering us, okay? We'll be unplugging to reconnect as a couple." Daniel wouldn't even say goodbye. He'd walk out the door, dragging his rolling suitcase, talking business on his phone, as if I were part of the furniture, a free babysitter that came with the family package. During those weekends, I'd stay alone with Sophia and Alex in that 4-bedroom house in Naperville, filled with expensive furniture and family photos where I never appeared. The kids would tell me their secrets while I made them pancakes shaped like hearts, just like I used to for Daniel when he was little. "Grandma Helen, why does Daddy never talk about you when his friends come over?" Sophia asked me one afternoon, while coloring a picture of a family where she'd drawn 5 people: herself, Alex, Daniel, Kate, and me. But I was in a corner of the paper, tiny, almost invisible. "Sometimes grown-ups forget the important things, sweetie," I answered, though my heart was breaking inside. What hurt the most was my birthday. Every year, on March 15th, I'd wake up with the foolish hope that maybe this year would be different. Maybe Daniel would remember without a reminder. Maybe he'd call early to wish me a happy birthday, like I did for him every August 8th for 42 years. But every March 15th was the same. Complete silence until 11 at night, when Daniel would send a text message that said, "Oh, Mom, happy birthday. The day completely got away from me. You know how work is. I'll make it up to you soon." He never made anything up to me. Last year was especially cruel. My 68th birthday fell on a Friday. I stayed home all day, cleaning closets that were already clean, waiting for a call that never came. At 6 in the evening, I mustered some courage and decided to buy myself a small cake from the corner bakery. "To celebrate alone," I told Mr. Rossi, the baker, trying to smile. He looked at me with his kind eyes and gave me a candle for free. "Make a good wish, Mrs. Miller." That night, I sat in my small kitchen with the cake in front of me and the candle lit. I made the same wish I always did, that my son would love me the way I loved him. I blew out the candle and ate a piece of cake alone, while I saw photos on Facebook of Kate having dinner at a fancy steakhouse with her friends from Pilates. "Girls' night out," she had written. "Life is too short not to celebrate." Daniel had liked the photo. But what truly broke me was what I discovered that night in Paris. Scrolling through my phone in the loneliness of my hotel room, I had stumbled upon Kate's Instagram profile, the kind she thought I didn't know how to use because older ladies don't get social media. And there it was, a photo of Eleanor toasting with champagne on the terrace of the Georges Fives, with the illuminated Eiffel Tower in the background. The caption read, "With the best mother-in-law in the world in Paris. Thank you, Daniel, for making Mom's dream of seeing France come true. She deserves all this and more after taking such good care of us all these years." Over 200 likes. Dozens of comments saying, "You're so lucky. What a wonderful son-in-law. You're blessed to have such a family." Daniel had commented, "Anything for you, Eleanor. You're the second mother life gave me." The second mother life had given him. I dropped the phone on the worn-out bedspread and just lay there, breathing as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. That sentence summed up my tragedy. I was the first mother, the one who had always been there. But she was the second one, the special one, the one who deserved Paris and champagne and declarations of love on social media. I cried that night like I hadn't cried since the day my own mother died. I cried for all the years I'd wasted hoping my son would value me. I cried for all the times I'd justified his indifference, thinking, men just don't know how to express their feelings. I cried for being foolish enough to believe that a mother's love was automatically returned. But in the midst of that breakdown, as I blew my nose with the rough hotel napkins, something shifted inside me, as if a door that had been locked for years had suddenly burst open, letting in a gust of fresh air. I remembered the secret I had been keeping for 2 years. The secret no one knew, not even my neighbor Brenda, who knew everything else about my life. It had all started when Leonard, my late husband Arthur's younger brother, fell ill with cancer. Leonard had never married, never had children. He was a solitary man who had dedicated his life to business, buying and selling properties all over the country. Daniel barely knew him because Leonard lived in Scottsdale and rarely came to Chicago. When the doctors told him he had only a few months to live, Leonard called me, his voice weak, breaking my heart. "Helen, I know we haven't been close, but you're the only family I have left. Could you come and take care of me? I'll pay you whatever you need." I didn't think twice. "You don't need to pay me anything, Leonard. I'll be on the first flight to Scottsdale tomorrow." I stayed with him for the last 4 months of his life. I cared for him as I had cared for Arthur when he was dying, with that infinite patience that only women who truly love possess. I gave him his medicine, made him soft foods he could swallow, read him the newspaper when he could no longer hold it himself. But most of all, I kept him company. We talked for hours about Arthur, about their childhood memories in a small town in Ohio, about the deals he'd made, about the life he had lived without a family of his own. "Helen," he told me one afternoon as I was placing a blanket over his legs, "no one has ever cared for me the way you do. Not even my own mother. Your family, Leonard. It's what you do." A week before he died, he asked me to call his lawyer. A very serious man arrived that day, with a leather briefcase and a dark suit, and he stayed in the room with Leonard for 2 hours while I waited in the kitchen. When he left, Leonard called me over. "Helen, come here. I have something important to tell you." I sat in the chair I'd placed by his bed and took his hand, which was already as cold as marble. "I've changed my will," he said, looking me straight in the eye. "Everything I have is going to be yours when I die. The 4 houses, the 2 commercial properties, the bank accounts, the investments, everything." I thought he was delirious from the medication. "Leonard, don't be silly. You should leave all that to Daniel. He's your nephew." "Your Daniel? The one who hasn't visited me once in these 4 months? The one who didn't even call when he heard I was sick?" It was true. I had told Daniel his uncle was very ill, that he should go visit him. His response had been, "Mom, you know I don't have time for that stuff. Besides, that man never cared about us. You go if you want, but I can't." "Helen, you've shown me what real family means," Leonard continued, his voice growing weaker. "Not the family of blood, but the family of the heart. I want you to use this money to be happy, so you never have to depend on anyone ever again." He passed away 3 days later, peacefully, holding my hand. The lawyer called me in a week after the funeral. When he read the full will to me in his office, I almost fainted right there. $8.5 million, 4 houses in Scottsdale all rented out, 2 commercial properties downtown, savings and investment accounts generating more in monthly interest than I had earned in my entire life. "Mrs. Miller," the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses, "you are now a very wealthy woman." I flew back to Chicago, staring out the window at the American landscape below, unable to believe what had happened. I had papers in my purse that made me a millionaire, but I felt exactly the same as always. I decided not to tell Daniel anything. I wanted to see how he would treat me when he thought I had nothing to offer but a mother's love. I wanted to find out if he loved me for who I was, or if he just tolerated me out of obligation. For 2 years, I kept the secret. I continued to live in my small apartment in Bridgeport, continued to shop at Jewel Osco, continued to wear the same old clothes. But for the first time in my life, I had a bank account that gave me security, and above all, options. I could leave whenever I wanted. I could say no whenever I wanted. I could stop being invisible whenever I wanted. And that night in Paris, crying on a hard bed while my son toasted with champagne to his second mother, I decided that the time had come to use that power. I would no longer be the mother who silently swallowed humiliation. I would no longer be the second-class grandmother. I would no longer be invisible. I was going to teach them all what it meant to lose something precious they'd always had and never appreciated. I picked up my phone and dialed the lawyer in Scottsdale. "Mr. Thompson, it's Helen Miller. I need you to start moving some things around tomorrow morning. It's time to make some changes in my life." On the other end of the line, I heard a smile in his voice. "Of course, Mrs. Miller. It's about time." The flight back to Chicago was completely different. I still had the same crumpled $100 in my purse, the same simple clothes, the same look of an older woman that no one glances at twice. But inside, something had changed forever. It was as if I had woken up from a very long dream, where I had been the star of my own humiliation. Daniel, Kate, and Eleanor were in first class, laughing and scrolling through pictures from the trip, while I watched from my seat in coach. This time, it didn't hurt. This time, it served as a reminder of everything I had to change. When we landed at O'Hare, they said goodbye with the same old coldness. "Mom, can you take the L train by yourself?" Daniel asked without looking at me, as he helped load the 5 new suitcases they had bought. "We're going to take Eleanor home. She's exhausted from the trip." "Of course," I replied with a smile that was, for once, genuine. "Get some rest, Eleanor. It was a very enlightening trip." Eleanor gave me a strange look at my tone but said nothing. She kissed the air on either side of my face, as always, and left on her daughter's arm toward their waiting car. During the train ride back to Bridgeport, my small suitcase between my knees and the clatter of the car accompanying my thoughts, I mentally reviewed everything I had to do. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer from Scottsdale, had confirmed via text that he would have all the papers I'd requested ready by Monday morning. I got to my apartment at 11 at night. It was the first time in years I'd returned from a trip without feeling the urge to call Daniel and tell him all about it. Instead, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, sat on my worn-out sofa, and dialed my neighbor Brenda's number. "Helen, how is Paris, hon?" "Brenda, can you come over for a minute? I have something important to tell you." Brenda arrived in her pajamas and slippers, with the kind of curiosity only people who truly know you have. We had become friends 15 years ago when she moved in next door after her husband passed. She was a direct, no-filter kind of woman, the type who tells you the truth even when it hurts. I told her everything. Paris, the humiliation, the $100, the unlimited card for Eleanor. I also told her about Leonard and the inheritance. Brenda listened in silence, nodding occasionally until I finished my story. "Helen Miller," she said finally, "I've been waiting years for you to wake up. That son of yours has treated you like a doormat for far too long. Brenda, I just wanted to be a good mother, and you have been. Too good. So good he got used to walking all over you. Now, tell me, what are you going to do with all that money?" I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake planning every move, every decision I would make in the coming days. For the first time in my life, I was in control. On Monday morning, Mr. Thompson greeted me in his Scottsdale office. I had flown first class for the first time in my life, just to see what it felt like not to worry about money. "Mrs. Miller, here are all the documents. The 4 properties are now completely clear of any liens. I've liquidated the investments you requested, and the money has been deposited into your new checking account. It comes to exactly $8,400,000. He showed me the bank statements. I had never seen so many zeros next to my name. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Mr. Thompson asked with a hint of concern. "Once you start, it will be difficult to turn back." "Completely sure. My son needs to learn a lesson he should have learned a long time ago. The first thing I did was buy the house where Daniel and Kate lived with the children. It was a property in Naperville they had mortgaged to the hilt to afford the monthly payments. Through a shell corporation Mr. Thompson set up, I bought their entire mortgage debt. From that moment on, I was their landlord, though they didn't know it. The second thing was to cancel all the credit cards Daniel had with me as a co-signer. There were 3, with a total limit of $15,000, which he used as if it were his own money. The third was to withdraw the money from a joint savings account we had opened years ago for family emergencies. It was $12,000 that I had slowly deposited over a decade, believing it would one day help my grandchildren with their education. But I realized Daniel had been taking money from that account without telling me. I flew back to Chicago on Wednesday afternoon. For 3 days, my phone had been completely silent. Not a single call from Daniel asking how I was, not a text from Kate, not even a picture of the grandkids. Business as usual. On Thursday morning, as I was having breakfast in my kitchen and reading the paper, as I had every day for 20 years, the phone rang. It was Daniel, but his voice sounded different, nervous. "Mom, how are you?" How strange. It had been months since he'd started a conversation by asking how I was. "I'm fine, son. Why do you ask?" "It's just, well, some strange things have happened. I went to the bank this morning, and they told me the credit cards have been canceled. Apparently, there was a problem with the cosigner. Do you know anything about it?" "Which cards, Daniel?" I asked, feigning innocence. "The ones you co-signed for me. And they've also frozen the joint savings account. The bank manager said there was a specific order from the primary account holder." "Oh yes, I went to the bank on Monday. I decided to cancel all those things." Silence on the other end of the line. A long, awkward silence. "But why, Mom? I need those cards for work. And the money in the savings account was for emergencies." For the first time in my life, I heard real concern in his voice when he spoke to me. It wasn't love. It was worry about the money he could no longer touch. "Son, I've decided to get my finances in order. At my age, it's important to have everything organized. But Mom, I was counting on that money. I have expenses, commitments. The kids need things. Daniel, you have a good job. I'm sure you can take care of your expenses and your children without needing to depend on your mother." Another silence. Longer this time. "Are you okay, Mom? You're talking differently." "I'm perfectly fine. I've never been better, actually. Look, why don't we get together tomorrow to talk? Kate is making a family lunch. Her parents are coming too. We can discuss all of this calmly. A family lunch I was only invited to when they needed something from me. What a convenient coincidence." "That sounds perfect, Daniel. I'll be there." On Friday, I took a cab to their house in Naperville. I didn't want to drive, sensing the conversation would be long and difficult. Kate opened the door with a wider than usual smile. "Helen, so good to see you. Come in, come in. The kids are dying to tell you about school." The children ran to me as they always did, and I hugged them with the same love as always. They weren't to blame for any of this. Sophia showed me a drawing she had made of herself, Alex and me, holding hands under a rainbow. "It's for you, Grandma Helen. It's the three of us being happy." My eyes welled up with tears. At least someone in this family saw me as a person who deserved to be in their pictures of happiness. During lunch, everyone was especially nice to me. Stephen asked about my health. Eleanor praised the dessert I had brought. Kate asked for my gazpacho recipe. Daniel sat next to me instead of at the head of the table as usual, and poured me wine without me having to ask. The sudden affection was nauseating. After dessert, when the children had gone to their room to play, Daniel cleared his throat and adopted the serious tone he used at work. "Mom, we want to talk to you about something important." "I'm listening." Kate spoke first, with that soft voice she used when she wanted something. "Helen, we're worried about you. Lately, you seem different, more distant. And then there's the issue with the bank, the canceled cards. We don't know if you're going through a difficult time." "A difficult time?" I repeated. "Yes, you know. At your age, it's normal for older people to sometimes make impulsive decisions. That's why we want to help. Impulsive decisions by older people. As if I were a senile old woman. Daniel leaned toward me, his face a mask of feigned concern. "Mom, we were thinking it might be a good idea for you to come live with us. You'd have your own room here. You could help with the kids, and we could take care of your affairs, your finances, your important papers." There it was. The proposal I had been dreading for years, arriving only after they had lost access to my money. "Take care of my finances?" I asked in the sweetest voice I could manage. "Of course, Mom. You know I understand these things. I can manage your accounts, your savings, everything you need. That way, you won't have to worry about a thing." Stephen nodded solemnly from his chair. It's the most sensible thing to do, Helen. Daniel can advise you better than anyone. Banks sometimes take advantage of people who don't understand investments. Eleanor added her 2 cents. And you'd be so well cared for here, with Kate cooking for you, with the grandchildren nearby. It's the ideal situation for a woman your age. I remained silent for a few seconds, studying their expectant faces, all of them waiting for my positive reply, my gratitude for their generosity, my relief at having someone to take care of me. It's a very tempting offer, I said finally. Daniel's smile returned for the first time all meal. So? What do you say, Mom? I stood up slowly, picked up my purse, and gave them a smile I had been practicing for days. I say no, thank you. I'm perfectly fine where I am. The smile vanished from Daniel's face as if someone had flipped a switch. What do you mean, no? You heard me. I'm not coming to live here. You're not managing my money, and I'm not a senile old woman who makes impulsive decisions. Kate turned pale. Helen, you don't understand what we're offering. I understand perfectly. You're offering me the same thing you've always given me. A place in your life only when you need me for something. I walked toward the door as they sat there, dumbfounded. But Mom, you can't just leave like this. We need to talk. Daniel, I said, turning back before I left. We've been talking our whole lives. The problem is, you've never listened. I closed the door behind me and walked to the curb where the cab I'd called during dessert was waiting. For the first time in 42 years, I had said no to my son. And it felt wonderfully liberating. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I wasn't woken up by the alarm clock at 6 a.m. to prepare breakfast for Daniel's Sunday visits. I wasn't woken up by the worry of whether I had enough food in the fridge in case he showed up unannounced with the kids. I wasn't woken up by that constant anxiety of wondering what more I could do to make them love me a little more. I woke up at 9, with the sun streaming through my small bedroom window, and for the first time in decades, I stayed in bed for an extra 5 minutes simply because I could. No one was waiting for me. No one depended on me. No one was going to blame me if I had breakfast at 10 instead of 8. The phone rang while I was making a coffee in my familiar kitchen. It was Daniel, of course. His voice was tense, almost desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, Daniel. How did you sleep? Mom, please, this isn't the time for pleasantries. You left yesterday without explaining anything. Kate is very upset. The kids were asking why you left so quickly. The children will understand when they're older. What do you need? A pause. I could picture him in his home office, loosening his tie, running a hand through his hair like he did when he was nervous. We need to talk. Seriously. There have been more problems at the bank. It seems the mortgage on the house has been transferred. I don't really understand what happened, but the manager says our bank isn't handling the loan anymore. I sat in my old armchair, the one with the cushion worn down from years of use, and smiled as I watched a pigeon peck at crumbs on my windowsill. Oh? That's strange. Mom, this is serious. If they've sold our debt to another entity, we could lose the house. Kate is hysterical. The kids, they can't lose their home. Kate, hysterical. Funny how he only called me now that there were real problems. Daniel, I'm sure you'll find a solution. You're smart people with good jobs. It can't be that serious. Smart? Good jobs? Mom, what are you talking about? You know our salaries go entirely to the mortgage, the kids' school, the household expenses. We were counting on your help for emergencies. Counting on my help. They had always counted on me, but they had never counted me in. Son, for years you've told me I don't understand money, that it was better for you to handle everything. Now it's your turn to prove how good you are at managing your own finances. But Mom, this is different. This is an emergency. Like when I was in the hospital last year and it took you 3 days to visit because you had a business dinner. Another silence. Longer this time. That was different. We knew you were okay. How did you know? Because Brenda told you when you called her to ask about me instead of calling me directly. Mom, please. Daniel, I have to go. I'm going for a walk. It's a beautiful day. And I hung up. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my son. I dressed with care that morning. I put on my blue dress, the one I only wore for special occasions, and the comfortable shoes I'd bought last year but had never dared to wear. because they seemed too modern for a woman my age. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror and saw a 68-year-old woman who no longer had to apologize for existing. I walked out of my building in Bridgeport, and instead of heading to the market as I did every day, I walked in the opposite direction, toward downtown Chicago, to places I'd never been as a tourist in my own city. I went into a cafe on Michigan Avenue, one of those with sidewalk tables and waiters in white aprons. I ordered an espresso and toast with avocado. When the bill came, $7.50, I didn't do the usual mental math to see if I could afford it. I just paid and left a tip. Then I walked to Millennium Park. It had been years since I'd been there. Not since I took Daniel as a little boy to run through the trees and see his reflection in the bean. This time I went alone, with no rush, no one to watch, no worries about someone getting their clothes dirty. I sat on a bench near the Lurie Garden and watched people go by. Young couples holding hands, families with children running happily, old men playing chess in the shade. Life, real, spontaneous life, without scripts or expectations. An older woman sat down on the other end of my bench. She wore a floral dress and a hat that gave her an elegant air. She took a book out of her bag and began to read quietly. "What are you reading?" I asked after a few minutes. "A Toni Morrison novel," she replied with a smile. "I've read it 5 times, but I discover something new each time. I've never had time for novels," I confessed. "Never? And you have time now?" The question made me think. Did I have time now? For the first time in decades, yes. I had all the time in the world. I think so. I think I finally have time. "Well, you should start with this one," she said, pulling another book from her bag. "It's beautiful. It's about strong women who decide to change their destiny." She gave me a copy of Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. When I got home that afternoon, I made myself a cup of tea, sat on my worn-out sofa, and started to read. I hadn't read a complete novel since I was 20. For 3 days, Daniel called nonstop. I let it go to voicemail. His messages evolved from feigned concern to real desperation. "Mom, please, pick up the phone. We need to talk." "Mom, this is getting very serious. The new bank says we have to regularize the situation immediately." "Mom, Kate has been crying all night. The kids are asking what's wrong. We can't go on like this." On the 4th day, he showed up at my door. I saw him from the window, standing in front of the building, talking on his phone with agitated gestures. When the buzzer rang, I didn't press the button to let him in. It buzzed for 10 minutes straight, until Brenda came out of her apartment. "Helen, are you going to go down or what? Your son's been down there making a racket for half an hour. I don't feel like seeing him, Brenda." "Well, I don't blame you. But go down and tell him to his face. Let him learn that you have the right to decide when you want to talk and when you don't." She was right. I went down to the lobby, but I didn't invite him up. We stood there, in the small entrance that smelled of bleach and where our voices echoed. Daniel had dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled, as if he'd slept in it. I couldn't remember ever seeing him so disheveled. "Mom, please, you have to help me. I don't know what's happening, but everything is falling apart." "What's falling apart, Daniel?" "Everything. The house, the cards, the savings. Kate says it's my fault for upsetting you. Her parents are furious because they think I can't handle my own mother." Handle. As if I were an animal to be tamed. "And what do you think?" "I think you're angry about something and you're punishing me. But I don't know what I did wrong, Mom. Tell me, and I'll fix it." I looked him in the eyes. The same eyes I'd seen open for the first time when he was 2 days old, that I'd seen cry when he fell off his bike, that I'd seen shine with pride when he graduated from college, the same eyes that had looked at me with indifference for years. "Daniel, when was the last time you asked me how I was without needing something from me?" He was silent, thinking. "When was the last time you invited me to dinner because you wanted to spend time with me? Not because you needed a babysitter?" Still silent. "When was the last time you called just to say you loved me?" His eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, I saw genuine emotion on my son's face. "Mom, I do love you. I've always loved you." "No, Daniel. You've needed me. That's not the same thing. But I can change. We can start over. Tell me what I have to do." "You don't have to do anything for me, son. You have to do something for yourself. You have to learn to live without using the people who love you. Using. Mom, I never. Daniel, in Paris, you gave me a crumpled $100 bill while you gave Eleanor an unlimited credit card. For years, you've invited me to your house only when you needed a free babysitter. You've made me feel like you were doing me a favor by calling me once in a while. But that wasn't. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean anything because you never stopped to think of me as a person. Only as Mom, as someone who was there to serve you. He leaned against the lobby wall as if he didn't have the strength to stand. So what now? Am I not your son anymore? Do you want nothing to do with me? You'll always be my son, Daniel, but I will no longer be your mother of convenience. Wait, what does that mean? It means that if you want me to be a part of your lives, it will have to be because you truly want me there. Not because you need my money, my time, or my free labor. Mom, we do want you. Then show me. Not with panicked words because you've lost access to my savings. Show me by treating me the way you treat Eleanor. With respect, with love, with consideration. And what happens to us in the meantime? To the house? To the kids? That, my son, is no longer my problem. You're adults. You'll figure it out. I went back up to my apartment and left him there, in the lobby, processing for the first time in his life that his mother had just told him no. That night, as I finished reading Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe and discovered that women could rebel against their fate at any age, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Grandma Helen. It was the voice of Sophia, my 4-year-old granddaughter. Hi, sweetie. How did you get my number? I asked Daddy for it. Grandma Helen, why don't you come to our house anymore? My heart broke. The children were not to blame. Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups have to fix important things, but I still love you just as much as always. Can I come see you? I miss your pancakes. Of course, my love. Anytime you want. Oh, that call reminded me that in the middle of this war, there were 2 little people who loved me for real, without conditions, without ulterior motives. For them, it would be worth finding a way to fix this mess. But this time, it would be on my terms. 2 weeks after that conversation in the lobby, my life had completely changed. I woke up every morning without the tightness in my chest that had been my companion for years. I had started a painting class at a local community center, something I had always wanted to do but never allowed myself because it was a silly thing for bored old ladies. It turned out it wasn't silly. It was wonderful to mix colors on a canvas and watch flowers I'd never imagined bloom, landscapes emerge from my happiest memories. The teacher, Carla, was a woman my age who had started painting after her husband passed away. Helen, Carla, my painting instructor, told me one day as I was trying to capture the exact color of a sunset, "You have a real knack for this. You should have been an artist when you were young." I was busy raising my son, I replied, without bitterness, just stating a fact. Well, now you have time to raise yourself. To raise yourself. What a strange and beautiful concept. I had also started going to a book club at the local library. Once a week, 10 of us women would gather to discuss books I never thought I could understand. I discovered I had my own opinions on literature, that I could analyze characters, and that the other ladies valued what I had to say. Helen always finds the one detail the rest of us miss, Margaret, the group coordinator, would say. It was comforting to feel smart again, after so many years of being made to feel like I was only good for washing dishes and changing diapers. Daniel called me every couple of days. His calls had evolved from desperation to pleading, and from pleading to something that sounded like respect. He no longer demanded explanations. Now he asked how I was, how my new activities were going, if I needed anything. If I need anything, Daniel? I had asked him the last time. I've been needing things for 68 years. I think it's time I stop needing and start wanting. And what do you want, Mom? I want to be treated like you treat Eleanor. I want to be invited to dinner because you enjoy my company. I want my grandchildren to see me as a grandmother who is worth something, not just a free babysitter. Mom, we never... Daniel, don't tell me what you never did. Tell me what you're going to do differently from now on. Silence had become his usual response. It was the silence of someone who, for the first time in his life, had to consider changing himself instead of demanding that others adapt to him. But the real surprise came on a Thursday morning when the doorbell rang. It was Kate. Alone, without Daniel, without the kids. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, and she was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry, none of the armor of elegance she always wore around me. "Helen, can we talk?" I let her in. I made coffee in my small kitchen, serving it in my everyday mugs, the ones I'd bought at Target 10 years ago that had never seemed good enough for her. She sat on my sunken sofa, in the same spot where Daniel had sat thousands of times as a child while I read him stories. She looked small there, vulnerable. "Helen, I came to apologize. I wasn't expecting that." In the 8 years I'd known her, Kate had never apologized for anything. Not even when she forgot to invite me to Sophia's first communion, and I had to find out from a Facebook photo. Apologize for what, Kate? For everything. For treating you like you were invisible. For taking advantage of you. For letting Daniel drift away from you without even realizing it. Her eyes filled with tears. These weren't crocodile tears. The kind I'd seen before when she wanted something. They were real tears of shame, of regret. "I never stopped to think about how you felt," she continued. "To me, it was like you were part of the scenery, someone who was there to help us when we needed it, but who didn't have her own feelings, her own needs. And what changed your mind? The kids. Sophia won't stop asking for you. She says you're the only one who makes heart-shaped pancakes, the only one who sings her made-up songs. Alex has started crying at night, asking for the good grandma. The good grandma." My heart ached. "And my mother," Kate went on. "Last week, I told her what happened, expecting her to take my side, to say you were being unfair to us. And what did she say? She yelled at me. She said I was ungrateful, that if anyone had treated her mother that way, she would have slapped some sense into me. She said you were a treasure, and that I had been a blind idiot for all these years. Eleanor defending me. I never thought I'd live to see the day. Helen, I know I have no right to ask you for anything after how we've treated you, but the kids need you. They really need you, not to watch them, but to love them the way only you know how. And you two? Do you need me for anything other than your financial problems?" Kate was quiet for a few seconds, thinking about how to answer. "I need you to teach me how to be a better mother, to teach me how to love unconditionally, the way you've loved Daniel your whole life. I need you to forgive me for being so stupid." It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. Kate without her masks, without pretense, just being human with me for the first time. And Daniel? Does he feel the same way? Daniel is scared. Scared he's lost you forever. But he's also confused because he's never had to work to have you in his life. Tell me the truth, Kate. How are things financially? She sighed deeply before answering. Bad. Really bad. Without the cards, without the emergency savings, without being able to count on you. We had to borrow money from my parents to make the mortgage payment. My father is furious because he says at our age we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And have you thought about selling the house? Daniel won't even consider it. He says it's his children's inheritance, that he can't leave them with nothing. Their inheritance? A house mortgaged to the hilt that you can't afford? Kate smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. A sad but genuine smile. You're right. Just like you've been right about so many other things we never listened to. I got up and went to my room. From the closet, I took out the folder where I kept all the documents Mr. Thompson had given me. I went back to the living room and placed it in front of her. Open it. Kate opened the folder and began to read the first few documents. Her expression changed as she turned the pages. Helen, it can't be. What can't be? You're the new owner of our house. You bought our mortgage. Exactly. But that means we owe the money to you, not the bank. Exactly again. She was silent for several minutes, processing the information. How long have you had all this money? For 2 years. An inheritance from my brother-in-law, Leonard. And why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to know if you loved me for who I was or for what I could give you. Now I have my answer. Kate closed the folder and looked me in the eyes. Helen, I know I have no right to ask you this after everything that's happened, but what are you going to do with the house? That depends. On what? On whether you're willing to start a new relationship with me. A real relationship, based on mutual respect and genuine affection. And if we're not, If you're not, you'll have 30 days to find another place to live. Kate turned pale. Helen, please, think about it. The children can't lose their home. Kate, the children won't lose their home if you two decide to treat me the way I deserve. The ball is in your court. What would we have to do? The same things you do for Eleanor. Invite me to dinner because you want my company. Ask me how I am because you care about the answer. Include me in your plans because you consider me part of the family, not because you need something from me. And financially? Financially, you don't owe me anything. The house is mine, but you can live in it, rent-free, as long as you treat me like a real mother and grandmother. Kate started to cry again, this time out of relief. Helen, I promise you it will be different. I swear it on my children's lives. Kate, I don't want promises. I want actions. Starting today. What do you want me to do? I want you to call Daniel right now and tell him that we're all going to dinner together tonight. At a nice restaurant, like a normal family. And I want you to treat me during that dinner exactly as you treat Eleanor when she comes to visit. Kate nodded as she dialed Daniel's number. Daniel? It's me. Cancel everything you have this afternoon. We're taking your mother to dinner at Gibson's. Yes, all of us, with the kids. No, it's not negotiable. Your mother has decided to give us a second chance, but there are conditions. She hung up and looked at me. Gibson's? Helen, that's so expensive. Kate, I have $8 million. I think I can afford dinner at Gibson's. For the first time in 8 years, Kate looked at me with genuine respect. Not with her usual condescension, not with feigned tolerance, but with real respect. Helen, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. All those years, when you saw us treating you badly, taking you for granted, why didn't you say something sooner? Because I was afraid of losing you completely. I preferred having crumbs of love to having nothing at all. And what changed? Paris. Watching how you treated Eleanor while handing me a crumpled $100 bill made me realize I had already lost my son a long time ago. I had nothing left to lose. And now I have a chance to get my real family back. Not the one that needs me, but the one that loves me. Kate stood up from the sofa and, for the first time in 8 years, gave me a hug. A real warm hug from one woman to another. Thank you for giving us a second chance, Helen. We won't waste it. That evening, as I got ready for dinner with my family, I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. I looked the same as always, but something in my eyes had changed. I was no longer the invisible Helen, the mother of convenience. I was Helen Miller, a 68-year-old woman who had finally learned to value herself. And that, I discovered, was more powerful than any inheritance. Dinner at Gibson's felt like being reborn. For the first time in years, Daniel stood up when I arrived at the restaurant. He pulled out my chair, asked what I wanted to drink, and included me in every conversation. The children sat next to me and told me everything they'd done at school, as if they had been saving up their stories for me for weeks. Grandma Helen, Sophia said as we shared a dessert. Are you not mad at Daddy anymore? I wasn't mad, sweetie. I was just sad, because sometimes grown-ups forget how to love each other properly. And do they remember now? Daniel looked at me from across the table with eyes that looked just like the little boy he used to be, the one who would wait for me at the school gate to tell me he got a good grade in math. Yes, I answered, stroking my granddaughter's hair. Now we remember. That night, when we said our goodbyes outside the restaurant, Daniel hugged me. Not the quick, obligatory hug he usually gave, but a long embrace, the kind that says things words cannot express. Mom, I'm so sorry for everything. I'm sorry for being so blind. Daniel, we make mistakes so we can learn from them. What matters is what we do from now on. Can I come see you tomorrow? Without Kate? Without the kids? Just you and me? To talk like we haven't in a long time. Of course, son. I've always had time for you. The problem was, you never had time for me. The next day, Daniel arrived at my apartment with flowers. Yellow daisies my favorite, though I hadn't reminded him in years because I'd stopped expecting them. He sat in my kitchen, in the same chair where he used to have breakfast as a teenager before life got so complicated. Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About how I needed you, but I didn't love you. And what did you conclude? That you were right. For years, I've seen you as as my safety net. Always there, always available, always fixing what I couldn't or didn't know how to fix. And what's wrong with that? A safety net is invisible until you need it. And I made you invisible. It was the first time my son had analyzed our relationship with such honesty, without defending himself, without making excuses. Daniel, do you know what hurt the most? Tell me. That you treated me worse than an employee. At least you pay employees and thank them for their work. You just took me for granted. You're right. And the worst part is I didn't even realize what I was doing. And you realize it now? Now I see a mother who sacrificed for 40 years for a son who was too selfish to appreciate it. Daniel, I didn't sacrifice. I gave you love. The problem is you never learned how to return it. How can I learn now? How can I get back all that lost time? By starting to treat me the way you treat people you respect and value. The way you treat your bosses, your important friends, Kate's parents. What do I have to do? Call me without needing anything. Invite me to dinner because you want my company. Ask me how my day was and actually listen to the answer. Include me in your important plans, not just the ones where you need a babysitter. Daniel nodded, taking mental notes of every word. And what about the money? Uncle Leonard's inheritance. What about it? Mom, it's a fortune. You could live like a queen. You could travel the world, buy a huge house, enjoy everything you never had. And what do you think about that? I think you deserve it. You deserve to be happy, to live well, to enjoy all that money. Even if it means I won't always be available for you? Daniel took a moment to answer. I could see him struggling with himself, between the selfish son he had been and the man he was trying to become. Yes. Even if it means we'll have to learn to be independent, to not rely on you for everything. Are you sure? Mom, during these past few weeks without you, I realized something terrible. I didn't even know your birthday without looking it up on my phone. I didn't know your favorite food, your favorite color, what you like to do in your free time. His voice broke as he said this. I've lived for 42 years thinking I knew you, but I didn't know anything about you as a person. I only saw you as my mother, as someone who existed for me. And what do you want to know now? Everything. I want to know what dreams you had before you had me, what plans you'd like to make now, what would make you truly happy. It was the deepest conversation we had ever had. My son, for the first time, was seeing me as a whole person, not just as his mother. Daniel, do you know what I've enjoyed most about these last few weeks? What? Discovering who I am when I'm not being your mother. I've discovered that I like to paint, that I have interesting opinions about books, that I can make new friends at 68. And do you like this Helen you've discovered? I love her. For the first time in decades, I like who I am. Daniel smiled, and it was a genuine, proud smile. I like this Helen, too. I like getting to know my mother as a person, not just as the lady who took care of me when I was little. That afternoon, we went to the Maxwell Street Market together. It had been years since we had walked alone, with no rush, no agenda, without him checking his phone every 5 minutes. We bought old books at a stall, had coffee and donuts at a stand, and talked about everything and nothing. It was like getting back the 10-year-old Daniel, the one who told me bad jokes to make me laugh, the one who held my hand to cross the street even when he was older because he liked feeling protective. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you forgive me? Do you really forgive me for treating you so badly for so many years? Daniel, I've already forgiven you, but more important than my forgiveness is that you forgive yourself and learn from all this. How am I supposed to forgive myself for wasting so much time with you? Son, we haven't wasted anything. Everything that happened was necessary to get us here, to this moment where we can finally love each other properly. 2 weeks later, Daniel turned 43. For the first time in years, I didn't wait for someone to tell me where the celebration was. I called to ask about their plans and was invited from the very beginning, not as a last-minute thought. The party was at their house, my house, technically, but I had already decided to legally sign it over to them after a year of our new family pact. Kate had cooked my favorite dish without me asking. The children had made special drawings for me, not just for their father. But what moved me the most was the gift Daniel had prepared for me. Mom, this is for you. He handed me a small box, wrapped in beautiful paper. Inside was a photo album, but not just any album. He had collected all the photos he had of us together, from when he was a baby to the present day, and on each page he had written a note, for the woman who taught me to walk, but whom I never taught to fly, for the mother who always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in her, for Helen Miller, the strongest person I know, whom it took me 42 years to discover. I cried as I read every page, not from sadness, but from that deep joy you feel only when something you thought was lost forever comes back to your life, transformed into something better. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stayed in the backyard, looking at the stars. Kate came out with 2 glasses of red wine. "Helen, can I sit with you?" Of course. We sat in silence for a while, enjoying the cool Chicago night air. "Helen, there's something I want to tell you." "I'm listening." "These past few months have taught me something I didn't know. They've taught me what a real mother is." "What do you mean?" "My mother always gave me everything I asked for, but she never taught me to value anything. She never set limits, never made me understand that you have to earn the important things." "Kate, no, let me finish. You, on the other hand, have given us the most important lesson of our lives. You've taught us that love isn't begged for, it's earned. You've taught us that valuable people aren't there to be used, but to be respected. I just wanted you to learn to love me properly. And we have. Daniel has completely changed. He used to talk about you like you were another piece of furniture. Now he talks about you with pride, with real affection. And you? I hope that one day you can consider me a real daughter, not just your son's wife." Kate had never spoken to me like that, with such sincerity, such vulnerability. "Kate, I already do. From the day you truly apologized to me. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. What are you going to do with all that money? Are you going to travel, buy things, change your life?" I smiled as I took a sip of wine. "You know what? I think I've already made the best possible use of that money." "How?" "I used it to get my family back, to teach you all to value what you had and were losing, to prove to myself that I deserved to be loved. And now? Now I'm going to use some of that money to do things I always wanted to do but never let myself. I'm going to travel to Italy to see the masterpieces I've studied in books. I'm going to take French cooking classes. I'm going to buy beautiful clothes, not for anyone else to see, but because I like seeing myself look nice in the mirror." "That sounds perfect. You deserve all of that and more. But most of all, Kate, I'm going to use it to make sure my grandchildren have the best possible education, that they can study whatever they want, so they never have to depend on anyone the way I did for so many years." That night, before going to sleep at my place in Bridgeport, because I had decided to stay there, in my old neighborhood with my people, I wrote in a new journal I had bought, "Dear 68-year-old Helen, today you learned that it's never too late to teach people how to love you right. That love is earned, not begged for. That being a mother doesn't mean being invisible. And that sometimes, to get back what you love, you first have to be willing to lose it." For the first time in decades, I fell asleep with no worries, no obligations, without that ache in my chest from wondering if I was good enough for my own family. I was enough. I had always been enough. It just took me 68 years to realize it. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the terrace of a small cafe in Florence, with an open notebook in front of me and a cappuccino that's still steaming. I've just finished my first art course in Italy, something I never thought I'd do at my age. I've painted the Duomo from every possible angle, and each of my paintings tells the story of a woman who learned to look at herself with the same admiration she had for that perfect architecture. The October sun warms my face as I write a postcard to Sophia. I tell her that yesterday I visited the Uffizi Gallery and saw Botticelli's The Birth of Venus up close. I promise her that when I get back, I'll teach her how to paint mermaids like the one in the painting, because before I left, she told me her grandma Helen was the only one who knew how to make magic with a paintbrush. My phone rings. It's Daniel. He calls me every 3 days now, not because he needs anything, but because he genuinely wants to know how I'm doing. Yesterday he sent me pictures of Alex learning to ride his bike. "I wish you were here to see it," he wrote, "but I'm so happy to know you're living your dreams. How's everything in Florence, Mom?" "Wonderful. Today I met a 70-year-old French woman who's here studying sculpture. She invited me to go with her to Rome next week." "That's fantastic. And how are the classes?" Daniel, I have to confess something. I think I have a talent for this. The professor says my paintings have an authentic soul. Of course you have talent, Mom. You've always had a talent for everything you set your mind to. The problem was we never gave you the space to pursue it. My son has learned to speak to me like a whole person, with my own interests and independent dreams. I'm no longer just Mom. I'm Helen, the woman who paints in Italy and has plans of her own. How are the kids? They ask about you every day. Sophia is making a calendar to count down the days until you come back. Alex learned a new song and says he's only going to sing it for you. And Kate, she's doing great. She started working again, part-time. She says seeing you become such an independent woman gave her the courage to do things for herself again. This fills me with pride. I haven't just gotten my own life back. I've inspired Kate to get hers back too. Daniel, there's something I want to tell you. Tell me. I'm proud of you, of how you've changed, of how you've learned to love me properly. But most of all, I'm proud that I gave myself the chance to get to know the wonderful person you always were, hidden behind so many years of bad habits. Mom, I'm the one who's proud of you. You're the bravest woman I know. After the call, I keep writing in my journal. It's something I do every day since I started this trip. I write letters to the Helen of a year ago, to that woman crying in a hotel in Paris, believing she was worthless. Dear past Helen, today I understood that you weren't wrong to love Daniel so much. What was wrong was accepting crumbs when you deserved a feast. Today I learned that teaching someone how to love you right isn't selfish. It's an act of love for both of you. I think of Eleanor, who now calls me to chat and invites me for tea when I get back to Chicago. Helen, she told me last time, I'm ashamed it took me so long to see what an extraordinary woman you are. My daughter was lucky to find a second mother like you. Second mother. Those words sound different now. Not like a replacement, but like a double gift for my grandchildren. Two grandmothers who love them equally, each with her own special way of caring. I finish my coffee and walk toward the Piazza della Signoria. In this very square, 500 years ago, Michelangelo first displayed his David. A masterpiece that was hidden for years inside a block of marble until someone had the patience and vision to sculpt it and reveal the beauty that had always been there. I identify with that story. I, too, was hidden for years inside a Helen who believed she was worthless, until I had the courage to sculpt a new version of myself. A version that didn't ask for permission to exist, that didn't apologize for having needs, that didn't accept secondhand love. Tomorrow, I return to Chicago. Not because my vacation is over, but because I miss my grandchildren and I want to show them the sketches I've made of Italian squares. I want Sophia to see that her grandma Helen doesn't just know how to make heart-shaped pancakes, but can also paint cathedrals that look like they're straight out of a fairy tale. I've rented an art studio in Wicker Park where I'm going to teach painting classes to senior citizens. It's going to be called Never Too Late, and it will be a place where women my age can discover dormant talents, just like I did. I've also decided to write a book. It will tell the story of a woman who, at 68, learned that self-love isn't selfishness. It's survival. That teaching people how to love you right isn't manipulation. It's emotional education. That it's never too late to demand the respect you always deserved. On the flight back, as Chicago gets bigger and bigger through the window, I think about everything that has changed in my life. I'm the same age, have the same face, live in the same small apartment in Bridgeport, but I'm not the same person. I'm a woman who knows her worth. I'm a mother who taught her son how to love her properly. I'm a grandmother who is going to create beautiful memories with her grandchildren, not just watch them when no one else can. I am a 68-year-old artist who has discovered that creativity has no expiration date. Daniel, Kate, and the kids are waiting for me at the airport with a sign that says, "Welcome home, Helen the artist." Sophia runs to me with a drawing she made of the two of us painting together. Alex hugs my legs and tells me he missed me so much. Kate hugs me the way you hug a mother, with genuine affection, not social obligation. Daniel takes my suitcase without being asked, and asks me about my paintings, my new friends, my plans for the next adventure. In the car on the way home, Sophia asks me, "Grandma Helen, why do you smile differently now?" Differently how, sweetie? Before, you smiled on the outside, but now you smile on the inside too. Children see things that adults sometimes miss. My granddaughter has discovered that I now smile from a deep place, from the satisfaction of having found myself after so many lost years. That night, in my home, I prepare a special dinner for the whole family. But this time, it's not because I have to prove I'm a good mother by cooking for everyone. It's because I want to share the joy of returning home as the best version of myself with the people I love. As I serve the risotto I perfected in my Italian cooking class, Daniel raises his wine glass. I want to make a toast to my mother, who taught us the most important lesson of our lives. What was that, Daddy? Sophia asks. That the people we love aren't there to be used. They're there to be valued. And that it's never too late to start loving someone properly. We all toast, even the children with their juice glasses. It's the first time in my life I've felt completely whole at a family table. Before they leave, Kate hands me an envelope. What's this? Open it. Inside is a check for a considerable amount and a note that says, "For Helen, with all our love. This is the money we would have spent on family counseling if you hadn't had the courage to teach us how to be a real family. Use it for your next adventure." I'm moved to tears. Not by the money, but by the gesture. For the first time, my family is giving me something without my having given anything first. That night, before I fall asleep, I write the last entry in my travel journal. Dear future Helen, I hope you always remember this moment. The moment you understood that teaching people how to love you right isn't selfishness. It's the greatest demonstration of self-love there is. That it's never too late to demand the respect you always deserved. And that sometimes, to get back what you love, you first have to be willing to lose it. I close the journal and look out my bedroom window. The same Bridgeport streets, the same lights, the same neighborhood where I've lived my whole life. But now everything looks different, because I see myself differently. Tomorrow, I'll start preparing for my painting classes. The day after, I have a meeting with a publisher about my book. This weekend, the grandkids are coming to spend the whole day with me. Not because their parents need a babysitter, but because they want to be with their Grandma Helen, the artist. And in a month, I'll start planning my next trip. This time to Greece, to see the classical sculptures I've studied in art books up close. For the first time in 68 years, I have a life that is completely my own, and it's more beautiful than I ever would have dared to dream. To all of you listening to me, I want to ask a question. Have you ever experienced something like what I've told you? Do you know someone who has felt invisible in their own family? If so, I want you to know that it's never too late to teach people to love us right. If this story has touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Because these stories need to reach someone who is crying in silence today, believing they are worthless, when in reality, they are worth everything.